It is the big question. What happens when we die? Well, now a groundbreaking study aims to find out what happens to our brains in these near-death experiences. Researchers finding that nearly 40% of people in cardiac arrest showed signs of having memories, dreamlike experiences, or some type of perception. And in some cases, even signs of heightened awareness consisting with being conscious. It's a first of its kind study published in the Resuscitation Journal. And now Dr. Sam Parnia, lead author of that study, is joining us now live. Doctor, thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure to be with you.
How did the research start, and what were the biggest takeaways for you?
You know, I'm an intensive care doctor, and our job is to try to save people's lives and make sure that they come back when they're critically ill. And as everyone is probably aware, ever since the discovery of CPR almost 60 years ago, millions of people have been brought back to life from the brink of death. And many of them have reported having a sense of lucid consciousness, of having awareness of what was happening to them when they were seemingly in a coma and on the brink of life and death. And so we decided to design a study which was carried out. This is the world's largest and most comprehensive study that explores what happens to the brain, to the mind and consciousness in people who are going from life to death as they're being resuscitated during cardiac arrest. And it was carried out across 25 hospitals, mostly in the United States and the United Kingdom.
Talk to me about the specifics of this study. How were you able to get data from people in cardiac arrest, considering how sudden and spontaneous and chaotic those situations can be?
You're absolutely right. This was a very complex study, and that's why I was saying this is the first time ever. But we managed to incorporate real-time brain monitoring systems that we put onto people's heads as they are being revived. And this was carried out across, as I said, many centers with almost 567 patients. We had 2 different brain monitors, and we designed 2 separate teams. One team was trying to save the life, as you're showing, and another team's job was just to put on the brain monitors and attach a Bluetooth headphone to an iPad that would give a stimulus that we could then test to see if patients had been conscious, and also to detect for signs of brain activity during the time that they were being revived.
You know, and we often hear about those final moments portrayed as white light, or people reporting floating above their body and seeing the whole scene from above, oftentimes seeing a loved one who has passed long ago. Did your research find anything like that?
Absolutely. We were trying to understand what this phenomena is, because people do describe that they have a sense of really increased lucid consciousness. They describe having a complete review of their lives where they can recall everything that they have done, all their thoughts, all their intentions, and all their actions, which normally you and I cannot do. And what was interesting is that although some scientists in the past had tried to dismiss these as being some kind of a trick of a brain, some sort of hallucination, our study was able to show for the first time that we could detect signs of lucid consciousness in people, even up to an hour afterwards, which confirmed the validity of what people have been saying. That actually, even though from our perspective they look like they're unconscious, internally they're going through a fascinating experience that only emerges with death. And that was what the real significance of this study was.
Wow. So bottom line, does this research elucidate at all the idea that there is something miraculous happening and experienced as people are passing versus just a biological process, a trick of the brain?
I think what this study shows is that there is a biological trigger that starts the experience, but that the experience is real. It's not a trick of the brain. It's not a hallucination. It's not a delusion. It's a real experience. And what we think happens, and we think we've identified the mechanism, is that as people die, the brain shuts down because there's no blood flow. And what that does is it removes the brain's natural braking systems that prevent us from getting, aware of all of the parts of our brain. And in so doing, people seem to access dormant parts of their brain, and that in turn gives them access to new dimensions of reality, including the entirety of all of their own consciousness, all of their own thoughts, their inner states, their emotions, their thinking processes, and how they've interacted with others. And incredibly, this is always viewed from the prism of morality. People evaluate themselves in death based upon the principles of ethics and morality. And so I think the conclusion is that this is a real experience that occurs in death, and it's intriguing to give us some understanding of what happens when we all die.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.